Hello and welcome back to Pseudo Gameplay TV for yet another character analysis. We're coming up towards the end of the characters that we'll be looking at that are available through the main story quest, people you don't have to do anything special for, purchase DLC. But today is the showcase of one of the arguably most iconic characters from Marvel Comics, if not the most iconic character, and that is everyone's favorite web-headed wall crawler, Spider-Man, specifically the Peter Parker variation or iteration. Now, Spider-Man doesn't really need that much of an introduction, but just so you are familiar with, or at least have a synopsis of what he is, what he's capable of, the like, Peter Parker's Spider-Man has a genius-level intellect, which is very impressive because in most iterations or presentations of the character, he is quite young, either in high school or just out of the high school type area. Though there are many storylines where he's quite a bit older, graduated from college even. Additionally, he is a proficient scientist as well as an inventor. In most iterations of Spider-Man, you'll see here on his wrist that he has some wrist-mounted web shooters he designs the web fluid and the webbing for, instead of it being organic like it's been in some iterations. By far and wide, his webs have been created by himself, his own special formula that he creates. On top of that, he has a precognitive spider sensibility, as well as the ability to cling to most solid surfaces, and of course his webbing abilities, which are facilitated by those wrist-mounted web shooters. Anything additional, he does have superhuman strength, speed, durability, agility, stamina, reflexes and reactions. He has incredible coordination, balance, and endurance as well. So quite a laundry list of abilities for the Peter Parker iteration of Spider-Man. And most Spider-Man or web warriors that you would see share many similar traits with what Peter Parker has. But all things considered, he's quite a noteworthy character and one that's beloved by people all over the world. In terms of his appearance in this game, he does have a couple of course, abilities that are to his use. The first one that comes available to him, and the only one available for him when you first meet this character, as he's introduced fairly early on in the main game series, is his web spinner, where he will release multiple web blasts in the direction that he's facing. And this is one of those attacks that can be mashed in order to use repeatedly. His second attack, the spider drone, will release a web attack, and that has a binding effect on the enemy that's targeted by the drone. So a little bit of a binding, similar to what we've seen with the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak from Doctor Strange and other attacks of that nature. His third attack we've seen with the presentation we did with Spider-Gwen, where there's a giant ball of webbing that crushes the enemies in front of the character. It should work a little bit differently than the way that Spider-Gwen uses hers, but we've seen the effect before in other characters as well. His fourth and final attack, apart from his ultimate attack that he has, is the Sticky Situation attack, where he shoots a flurry of web blast and attacks enemies in a radius. So this does go all about where the character is when it is activated and used. Now, I wasn't able to find a team build that maximizes every single one of Spidey's reflexes, or synergies, I guess I should say, but we do have most of them filled out here with this team between Luke Cage, Miles Morales, and Doctor Strange. So now that we've had a look at Spider-Man's base abilities, let's go ahead and swing into action and show you what it looks like and how he's used. Alright, so right off the bat, we do need to note that Spider-Man does not have a double jump, but he does have his web swing ability that he uses to just kind of zip around, and it's nice for getting out of some of the more tricky fights with opponents. He does have a 5-hit medium combo, and his heavy attack is a swinging web kick that does knock down the opponent that he swings into, sends him flying back a little bit even. So that's quite a useful attack to use, and it has a fair amount of range on it as well. Now, as far as his aerial attack, this is one that is very different from what you've seen from some of the other spider characters. You can actually kind of mash it as you come down to continue repeating those web blasts. And I'll showcase that one more time as well. So quite a fair amount of damage that you can output with that. Now in terms of his actual abilities, we will go ahead and start with his web spinner. And this one is a little better used from a distance, but you will see that it does detain the opponents that get caught in it for a period of time. His second ability, the spider drone, you'll see that spider drone kind of targeted this opponent right here, and now it's going to target two others. If it targets one of the bigger bosses with a stagger bar, it will not bind them, but it will detain some of the smaller grunts, so do keep that in mind. His third ability, the web crush, again, you want to locate that around some opponents, but he does bring that flying and crashing down on top of the opponents, and just like that we were able to knock out the stagger bar of one of those larger enemies in just 2 hits. Now, in terms of his fourth and final ability, the sticky situation, this one is done a little bit better in the midst of a group of people, as long as they're not charging into you. And that looks like the following. And again, this will web up and knock down some of the larger opponents, or smaller opponents and smaller grunts, but it will do nothing against the larger opponents. Now, in terms of his ultimate attack, let's come over here to this larger group and not get knocked on our butt.
Pretty spectacular, huh?
And this will take care of a lot of the larger opponents. Smaller opponents really just kind of cleans house against a grand multitude of anyone that's really in the area. Now, in terms of the attacks that are the most useful, I'm certainly of the opinion that this web crush does the most burst damage, though it does have quite a bit of startup time. So do keep that in mind, because there are several of these attacks that you can just get hit out of. But it does a fair amount of damage, and when it does finally land, it's quite a brutal attack. Now let's go ahead and showcase that ultimate attack one more time,
Pretty spectacular, huh?
just to get down some of these other opponents that we have here. And it does kind of look like an amalgamation of any of his attacks that we've seen previous to now. Now, if you are in a bit of a stickier situation, you do want to sticky situation, just to make sure that you can get the crowd a little bit more under control. But apart from that, Spider-Man is very fun to use. He's very efficient, he's very quick, and he has a fair amount of crowd control ability to him as well. So, thanks for tuning in here. We will be back next, in just a couple of days actually, with the next character analysis. That will be for Star-Lord. Again, I do have uploads daily, so if you're enjoying this series, please be sure to drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on all of my content. Got some great surprises coming around just later this year that I'm excited to share with you. So, thanks again for your time and for tuning in, and you have a great rest of your day. Take care.